The yellow windshield cards were still on my dispatch counter when the two backup vans rolled through the gate. Reserve A lay face up beside my coffee. Reserve B had landed near the stapler, one corner bent. Beyond the glass, strangers sat behind the wheels of vans I had fueled, inspected, and staged for Monday's airport handover. White auction stickers covered the airport decals. I shoved through the dispatch door. "Stop those vans!" The driver of the first one looked at the man in the passenger seat. The man looked toward Julian. My boss stood beside Dana Mercer, our client liaison, holding a leather portfolio and wearing the patient smile he used when someone else was about to become unreasonable. "They've been sold, Marisol," he said. "The airport requires them." Julian gave Dana a small, apologetic laugh. "My cousin believes every vehicle needs two understudies. She's thorough to the point of being wasteful." The first van crossed the gate. I looked at Julian. He had approved those reserves himself. Worse, he remembered why. So why was he smiling? The second van bumped over the driveway lip, its rear suspension giving the familiar little squeak Ellis had spent 3 weeks chasing. I knew that sound better than I knew most people's laughs. "Those are on the submitted VIN list," I said. Julian's smile held. "We'll update it." "They're insured for the airport route." "We'll update that, too." Dana shifted the canvas tote on her shoulder. She was a compact woman with silver-threaded black hair and the stillness of someone who made other people fill silences for her. "When did you decide to sell them?" she asked. Julian glanced at me as if I might know. That was the part that hurt. He made it look collaborative. "Fleet review was Wednesday," he said. "Marisol's been busy with mobilization, so I handled the disposal personally. Wednesday, I had been at the airport from 5 in the morning until after lunch, walking curb zones with Dana and an airport safety officer. Julian had texted twice, once to ask whether the Navy decals looked too dark, once to remind me that our lender's analyst was coming next week. He had never mentioned selling a paperclip. The gate slid shut behind the buyers. Our lot looked wrong immediately. 6 airport vans formed 2 clean rows beneath the afternoon sun. At the end of the second row, 2 fresh rectangles of concrete showed where the backups had protected the pavement from dust. I went back inside and picked up the yellow cards. They were laminated sheets the size of menus, with black letters large enough to stop a dispatcher from borrowing a reserve during a busy hotel shift. Julian had teased me about the laminator, then he had approved the cards in an email after one of our drivers took a backup to cover a delayed convention group. Dana followed me in. Julian followed Dana. He set his portfolio on the counter, right on top of Friday's vehicle assignment sheet. "Can we continue the tour?" "Did you review the signed service terms before releasing the titles?" I asked. His eyes sharpened by half a degree. Most people miss that change. I had been related to him too long. I reviewed the pricing summary. The service terms require 6 primary vehicles and 2 road-ready backups during every flight bank. The contract requires service delivery. It requires 8 presented vehicles at handover. Dana took a breath through her nose. It could have been sympathy. It could have been an allergy. Julian opened his portfolio. "We have 10 additional vans in the fleet. One has a wheelchair lift. We have another accessible van. At the North Hotel Loop. We'll move it. It carries a different insurance class, it doesn't have an airport permit, and the lift stalls when it's cold." Julian turned to Dana. "This is how Marisol and I work. She gives me every possible obstacle, and I sort out which ones are real." Dana studied him for a moment. "Monday at 8. Helen will want to see every vehicle. And she will." Julian said it smoothly enough that if I hadn't watched both reserves leave, I might have believed him. He guided Dana toward the maintenance bays, talking about our preventive service intervals. He knew the figures. He knew that we rotated tires at 5,000 miles because curb routes wore the passenger side edges faster. He knew Ellis had cut unscheduled downtime by 14%. Julian could absorb an operation the way some people absorbed a song, then perform it beautifully for an audience. He just hated keeping the boring parts after the audience went home. I stayed behind with the yellow cards in my hands. Through the open bay door, I heard him ask Ellis about his mother's recovery from surgery. He remembered the surgeon's name. Ellis, who distrusted anyone wearing shoes that clean, softened enough to answer. That was Julian. He could make care feel specific. He could make cruelty feel administrative. Dana found me 10 minutes later in the accessible van, checking the tie-down straps we had already checked that morning. I was pulling each one hard enough to make the webbing bite my palm. "Do you always inspect things 3 times?" she asked. "Only when my boss sells the first 2. That got a brief smile. She stepped into the van and tested the overhead clearance with her eyes. "He told me the sale was part of a scheduled fleet reduction. He told me it was Wednesday. Those statements can coexist. They usually do around Julian." Dana ran one finger along the edge of the lift control housing. "Helen Ward is very literal at a handover. So am I." "Yes," I noticed. There was no insult in it, which somehow made me feel more exposed. I clipped the straps back into their holders. "Did he know you were coming today when he arranged the pickup?" "Your calendar invitation included him. Of course it did." Dana lowered her voice. "I'm here to observe readiness, Marisol. I'm not here to referee a family company. He's my boss at work. And outside work? My cousin. That sounds simpler when you say it fast." She climbed down. Before leaving, she tapped the yellow reserve a card against my wrist. "Keep your source documents close," she said. "Monday gets noisy." After her car pulled out, I found Julian in his office with his jacket off and his sleeves folded twice. He had 3 spreadsheets open across 2 monitors. On the corner of his desk sat a paper cup of pistachios and the chipped ceramic bowl my Aunt Lucia had brought from her kitchen when the company moved into this building. He was calculating. That scared me more than anger would have. "What did you get for them?" I asked. He clicked into a cell. 48 combined. They were worth at least 62. They were worth what someone transferred today. "Why today?" "Our debt ratio is measured at quarter close. Quarter close is Monday. Now you see the appeal of today." He swiveled around. Julian's tie was loosened and a faint red line crossed the bridge of his nose, where his glasses rested when he worked alone. For a second, he looked exhausted instead of polished. "The lender's analyst moved the review up," he said. "We're outside the equipment covenant unless I bring down the balance or inject cash. I brought down the balance. With contracted vehicles, with idle vehicles." They weren't idle. They had no passenger assignments. They were backups. That is a description of idleness, Mari. He was the only person at work who still called me Mari. He used it when we agreed, when he wanted us to agree, and when he wanted everyone else to know disagreement was a family defect. I put the yellow cards on his desk. "You approved these." "I approved a dispatch control. I didn't canonize 2 vans. You approved the VIN schedule before the bank changed its timeline. You could have told me. You would have said no. I'm saying no now. Exactly, and the debt has already been paid down." He cracked a pistachio and dropped the shell into Aunt Lucia's bowl. "I'm not pretending the timing was elegant. I made a choice between 2 vans sitting on concrete and a lender deciding we're too leveraged to fund the casino expansion. The casino route hasn't been awarded. We're the preferred bidder. The airport has been awarded. We start Tuesday. And we will start Tuesday." "With what?" Julian turned back to his screens. He pulled up the fleet list and pointed to units 21 and 24. "These." I leaned closer. 21 is assigned to Riverfront Suites. They can use 17. 17's air conditioning compressor is on order. Then they can use 26. 26 seats 14. Their agreement requires 18. He pointed to another row. "Move the Sprinter. The Sprinter has the accessible lift that stalls. It passed its annual inspection. In April, the fault started in June. Has it failed during service? It stopped halfway down twice in the yard. But has it failed during service? That's your standard? My standard is whether a vehicle can do the work. My standard is whether we know it will." Julian leaned back and rubbed both hands over his face. When he lowered them, the cousin had disappeared. My boss was sitting there. Prepare units 21 and 24 for airport inspection. Reassign the hotel work. Update the packet before you leave. I won't list 24 as the accessible backup until Ellis clears the lift, then have him clear it. That isn't how clearing a fault works. It is Friday afternoon, Marisol. Monday morning, I need 8 vans in front of Helen Ward. Between those two facts lies the reason I employ an operations manager. And somewhere behind both facts are 2 vans you sold. His jaw shifted. The thing about Julian's temper was that it rarely raised his voice. It improved his grammar. You are allowing your attachment to your father's fleet philosophy to interfere with present financial reality. My father had managed maintenance until a heart attack took him out of Bay 2 on an ordinary Tuesday. He believed a vehicle earned its keep by being ready, not merely moving. Julian had repeated that sentence at the memorial. I looked at the pistachio shells in my aunt's bowl. That was cheap, I said. No, selling depreciating equipment was cheap. This is unpleasant. He clicked the fleet spreadsheet closed. Have the packet on my desk by 6. I left his office at 5:23 with the packet untouched. Ellis was under Unit 24, his boots sticking out past the bumper. A radio played low from his cart. Some old country song about a woman stealing a truck. The timing was good enough to feel rude. Tell me something happy, I said. His voice came from beneath the chassis. Left rear brake pad has another month. I'll take it. He rolled out on the creeper. Ellis had a silver mustache, forearms inked with faded military maps, and the permanent squint of a man inspecting the world for leaks. Julian says this is going to the airport. Julian says a lot of things near clean shirts. Can you clear the lift? I can diagnose it. By Monday? I can diagnose it in an hour. Fixing depends on what's wrong. Can you sign it road ready tonight? He sat up slowly. You asking for you, he said. Or you asking for him? Me. Then no. Relief came first, followed quickly by dread. He wiped his hands on a red shop rag. Position sensor loses contact when the platform flexes. Might need a harness. Might need the control board. I wrote it up. I saw. Someone moved my write-up from open faults to monitor. When? He nodded toward the front office. I pulled out my phone and opened the maintenance system. The entry still showed the lift fault, but the status had changed at 4:41 p.m. monitor. No service impact. Changed by JVEGA. Ellis watched my face. You want me to change it back? Yes. He'll change it again. Then print it first. The printer in the parts cage squealed through 3 pages. Ellis signed the bottom with a ballpoint pen that skipped on the first stroke. He pressed harder. I tucked the report into my mobilization binder. That binder had become a joke around the depot. It was 3 inches thick, blue, and heavy enough to alter a person's posture. Julian called it the Book of Sorrows because every tab contained something expensive. Insurance endorsements, driver clearances, permit receipts, maintenance records, emergency contacts. Under tab 4 sat the signed service terms. I carried the binder into dispatch and locked the door. Friday sunlight made long bars across the desks. The empty spaces outside seemed brighter than the rest of the lot. I opened the contract. 6 primary service vehicles, 2 dedicated backup vehicles maintained in road-ready condition, 1 backup equipped and certified for accessible service. All vehicles presented at operational handover. Julian's signature appeared on page 14 in blue ink, slanting upward as if even his name expected good news. Behind the contract were inspection photos I had taken Wednesday. Reserve A and Reserve B showed through the windshields. VIN plates were visible in the close shots. The mileage logs carried my initials and Ellis's. Dana had emailed approval of the final fleet schedule, Thursday at 3:12. I scanned each page to the restricted compliance folder Dana had established for mobilization records. Then I put the originals back in the binder and took it with me. At 6:11, Julian appeared in the dispatch doorway. Where's the revised packet? I can revise assignments after the replacement vehicles are compliant. I gave you a direct instruction. You gave me an outcome the current fleet can't support." His gaze dropped to the binder under my arm. "You don't need to take company records home. I always take the mobilization binder before a handover. Leave it." The old air conditioner rattled above us. From the maintenance bay came the metallic bang of Ellis, dropping a tool into a drawer. I tightened my grip on the binder. "Email me that instruction," I said. Julian stared at me long enough for the family part of the room to crack. Then he smiled. "Have a good weekend, Mari." He walked away without sending anything. At 6:19, my access to the fleet system stopped working. At 6:21, the maintenance portal rejected me too. At 6:24, I received an email from Julian. "Marisol, your administrative access has been temporarily restricted while we review inconsistencies in airport fleet preparation. You are expected at the depot Monday at 7:15 a.m. to support handover under my direction. Do not alter vehicle assignments or communicate revised readiness information to the client without authorization. Regards, Julian." He had copied payroll, Dana, and Tasha Green, our senior dispatcher. Ellis wasn't included. I read the phrase "inconsistencies in airport fleet preparation" until it began to look like a problem someone else had created. Then I forwarded Julian's email to my personal address, photographed the screen, and closed my laptop. The binder sat upright in the passenger seat on the drive home, secured by the seatbelt. At a red light, I caught myself resting one hand on its cover. My father used to buckle toolboxes into seats because he said a loose wrench became an opinion at 40 miles an hour. Julian would have remembered that too. I lived in a 2-bedroom duplex 12 minutes from the depot. The second bedroom had become a graveyard for fitness equipment and unopened mail, so I spread the service terms across my kitchen table instead. The yellow reserve cards went above the contract. Beneath them, I arranged the approved fleet schedule, the inspection photographs, Ellis's printed fault report, and the title release notice Julian's office had copied me on automatically at 5:02. That notice contained the sale time, purchase amount, both VINs and Julian's electronic signature. Wednesday's fleet review had been a fiction. He had signed the release Friday afternoon, 11 minutes before Dana arrived. I sat back. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere in the other half of the duplex, my neighbor laughed at a television show. My kitchen smelled faintly of the coffee I had abandoned that morning. Julian had sold the vans when he knew the client was coming. That meant the humiliation wasn't an accident produced by bad timing. He had counted on the sale looking irreversible by the time I saw it. Dana's presence gave him an audience, and an audience turned my objection into temperament. I wanted to send her the title release. Her restricted compliance folder was open to mobilization documents, and I had uploaded the contract pages and photos before leaving. The title release belonged there too. Julian's instructions sat in my inbox. Do not communicate revised readiness information to the client without authorization. I uploaded the release to the folder without writing Dana a message. At 9 Saturday morning, Aunt Lucia rang my doorbell holding a foil-covered baking dish and wearing lipstick the color of a stop sign. She looked past me toward the kitchen table. "You're making a murder wall. It's a contract." Same amount of paper. She walked in and set the dish on my stove. Lucia had retired from Vega Passenger Services 2 years earlier, but she still dressed on Saturdays as if a vendor might catch her buying tomatoes. Cream blouse, gold earrings, low heels. Her perfume arrived in a room half a second before she did. "Julian called you," I said. He came over. "That's worse." He brought coffee. Much worse. She removed the foil from the dish. Red chili and melted cheese released enough heat to fog the window over the sink. "You look tired," she said. "I look unemployed?" "Julian says you still have your job. He took my access and told the client there are inconsistencies in my preparation. He said you refused to adapt." I laughed once. "There it is." Lucia opened my silverware drawer without asking. She had helped me move into the duplex. According to her, that granted permanent drawer rights. "The bank review got moved up," she said. "Did he tell you that?" "He did. We had a bad spring. I know the numbers. You know operations. Julian knows the whole picture. I pointed toward the sale notice. I know he sold $62,000 of useful equipment for $48,000. He paid down the line, with vans assigned to a signed contract. He says there are other vans. There are vans. There aren't two compliant backups. Lucia handed me a plate. Eat before you become impossible. I crossed impossible around midnight. I could tell. Your eyebrows have met. I took the plate because resisting Lucia's cooking created a separate hearing. She stood at the table and studied the yellow cards. Your father would have liked these. He made versions from cardboard. I remember. They dissolved whenever it rained. He believed in affordable systems. That brought a smile, but it faded quickly. The company funds my retirement, she said. It funds Marta's, too. Julian has carried more pressure than you see. Marta was his mother, Lucia's older sister, and the person who had handed him control because he could sell December to July. I see the pressure, I said. I don't accept what he did with it. What do you want from him? To put the vans back. They're gone. Then I want him to stop pretending they were never required. Lucia pulled out a chair. And if admitting that costs us the airport contract, the U.S. landed exactly where she intended. I ate a bite of enchilada I couldn't taste. He wants me to certify a faulty lift, I said. Her eyes moved to Ellis's report. Did he tell you that? He told me to have Ellis clear it after changing the fault status himself. That's serious. Yes. Can it be fixed before Monday? I don't know. He blocked me from finding out. Lucia sat very still. She had signed payroll checks for 30 years. She understood the difference between a family argument and a record carrying a mechanic's name. Julian says you resent him, she said. He's right sometimes. The admission surprised her. I put down my fork. He can walk into a room and make people want the future he's selling. I walk in and tell them how many drivers it takes. Guess who they invite back? You think he was the favorite. I think he was easy to be proud of. And you? I was useful. Lucia looked toward the window. The glass had cleared, leaving her reflection pale against the daylight. Your father trusted useful, she said. My father is gone. Yes, and Julian is frightened. So am I. She reached across the table and pressed 2 fingers to the bent corner of Reserve B. Bring this company through Monday, she said. Then fight about who gets to be right. I can't bring it through Monday by lying. I didn't ask you to lie. You asked me to protect everyone from the cost of the truth. She drew back her hand. The visit ended politely, which was how Vegas did damage when shouting might leave witnesses. Lucia wrapped 2 enchiladas from my refrigerator, kissed my cheek, and told me to sleep. At the door, she turned. Julian did save the riverfront account, she said. I know. He slept at the depot during the driver shortage. I know that too. I need you to remember he isn't only Friday. I need him to remember I'm not only difficult. She left without answering. At 12:37, Tasha sent me a photograph with no message. It showed the whiteboard in dispatch. Monday's airport lineup had units 11, 12, 14, 18, 21, and 23 as primaries. Unit 24 was marked Accessible Reserve. Unit 29 was marked Reserve. I zoomed in. Unit 29 had been out of service since Thursday with a cracked passenger step. I typed, "Is 29 back?" 3 dots appeared, vanished, then appeared again. Julian says Ellis fixed it. I called Ellis once. "Tell me you fixed 29, I said. I fixed the cracked step. And its airport permit expired last month. Anything else? It isn't on the endorsement. Can that be done by Monday? Insurance, maybe. Airport permit, ask the airport. I looked at the contract on my table. All backup vehicles had to carry current permits at presentation, even if they weren't entering the active curb zone until service began. What happened with 24? Ordered a position sensor. Supplier says Tuesday. Julian knows? He watched me order it. Did you sign a clearance? Ellis made a sound like a chair dragging across concrete. I signed an inspection. The inspection says the lift failed under load. Keep your copy. You expecting a fire? I'm expecting someone to ask why there's smoke. Sunday afternoon, Tasha sent another photograph. The maintenance bay floor had been washed. Unit 24 sat closest to the door with new airport decals on its sides. Through the windshield, someone had placed Reserve A. The original card was in my binder. I enlarged the picture. The replacement card had been printed on white paper with a yellow border, then slid into a plastic sleeve. Julian had recreated the object while removing its history. A second photo arrived. Unit 29 held a matching Reserve B. I wrote, "Who made those?" Tasha answered, "He did." That evening, Julian emailed the handover packet to the mobilization group. He had updated the fleet schedule. He had also removed my name from the sign-off line and inserted his own. Unit 24 was described as accessible equipped, inspected. Unit 29 was described as permit renewal in process. The insurance certificate attached to the email listed only the 6 primary vans. A note said the carrier was processing additional vehicles effective Monday. I read it twice, looking for some detail I had missed that would make the whole arrangement technically defensible. Then I noticed the footer on the maintenance summary, prepared by Marisol Vega, Director of Operations. He had used an older form carrying my name. I replied only to Julian. "You do not have my authorization to issue this summary under my name. Unit 24 has an unresolved lift fault. Unit 29 does not hold a current airport permit and is absent from the attached insurance endorsement. Please correct the record before handover." His answer came 6 minutes later. "Your concerns are noted. Please report as directed." On Monday morning, the gate was already open when I arrived at 7:03. All 8 vans had been washed. The 6 primaries formed a line along the east fence, decals level and tires shining with too much dressing. Units 24 and 29 waited near the office with Julian's imitation reserve cards behind their windshields. From a distance, readiness looked beautiful. Tasha stood in dispatch pouring coffee into a travel mug. Her braids were wound into a knot, and her expression said she had spent the weekend moving hotel assignments through a keyhole. "Riverfront?" I asked. "Unit 17. The air conditioning? Works if the driver doesn't use setting 4. That's not working." I gave him a towel for the dashboard vent. I almost smiled. She glanced toward Julian's office. "He told staff you were under a performance review." "Did he say for what?" "Resistance to process improvement." "That should look nice on a cake." Tasha lowered her voice. "He also said you misplaced the original handover binder." I lifted it slightly. Her eyes widened. "He said it was missing." "It was in my arms when he told me to leave it Friday." "He's got a duplicate in his office." "I saw the duplicate documents." "You're not on the speaking schedule." "There's a speaking schedule?" "There's always a speaking schedule when Julian wants something to look spontaneous." At 7:16, he came out wearing a dark blue suit and carrying his leather portfolio. His gaze found the binder immediately. "I asked you to leave company records," he said. "You asked me verbally after restricting my access. I followed our standard handover practice. You'll give that to me. I'll present the original records if Helen requests them." His eyes moved to Tasha. "Give us a minute." Tasha took her coffee outside. Julian waited until the door closed. "I am trying to keep 43 people employed," he said. "You are trying to win an argument." "I'm trying to keep your argument from stranding someone at an airport curb. The lift works. It failed Friday. It completed 3 cycles yesterday. Under load?" He adjusted his cuff. "Ellis is overly conservative. That's why we employ him. You will stand with the operations team. You will answer direct questions. You will not volunteer commentary. If I'm asked whether the backups comply, I'll answer. Mari, don't." His face changed. A black airport SUV entered the gate at 7:52. Dana sat in the passenger seat. Helen Ward drove. Helen wore steel-toed boots, gray slacks, and a fluorescent safety vest over a white blouse. She carried a clipboard with a red airport operations cover and walked past Julian's offered hand without appearing to notice it. "Morning," she said. "Show me every vehicle." Julian launched into his welcome. Helen walked while he spoke, checking fleet numbers against her sheet. She looked inside each primary van, asked 2 drivers to produce their badges, tested a radio, and ran one finger over a first aid kit seal. At Unit 24, she stopped. "This is the accessible backup?" "Yes," Julian said, fully inspected. Helen looked at me. "Ms. Vega, cycle the lift." Julian's head turned a fraction. I opened the side door, released the controls, and lowered the platform. Empty, it moved smoothly to the ground. "Load test," Helen said. Dana rolled a steel test weight from the SUV. We secured it on the platform. The lift rose 14 inches. Then it stopped. A warning tone began to pulse inside the van. Helen looked through the windshield at the yellow paper card Julian had made. "Show me the inspection record." Julian opened his portfolio. I opened the blue binder. Helen reached for mine. Her hand passed over Julian's open portfolio and closed around the binder's spine. He kept smiling. "The inspection summary is in my packet," he said. Helen turned to the maintenance tab. I asked for the record. Ellis's printed report was the first page. "Failed under load," appeared in a box near the bottom, followed by his note about the position sensor and wiring harness. The status change history showed Julian moving the fault from open to monitor at 4:41 Friday. Helen read without changing expression. "Who performed this inspection?" "Ellis Bell," I said. "Where is he?" "In Bay 2. Julian stepped closer. "We tested the lift yesterday. It completed 3 successful cycles." "Who tested it?" I observed the test personally. Under load? The warning tone kept pulsing. Julian looked into the van as if the answer might be printed above the window. "The platform cycled," he said. Helen wrote something on her clipboard. "Raise it manually and secure it. Show me the other backup." Dana stayed beside Unit 24 while Julian led us to 29. The imitation Reserve B card shone behind the windshield. Up close, the yellow border was visibly uneven. Helen held out her hand. "Permit." Julian produced a plastic sleeve containing the vehicle registration, insurance card, and inspection certificate. He flipped past each item twice. "The airport permit is being renewed," he said. "When did the previous one expire?" "End of June." Helen checked her clipboard. "Insurance endorsement?" "Our carrier is processing it effective today. Do you have a binder or confirmation?" "In progress." "So this vehicle is unpermitted and uninsured for contracted airport service." "It is insured as a commercial passenger vehicle. For airport service," Julian's mouth tightened. "Not yet." Helen walked to the front of the van and copied the VIN through the windshield. A light breeze lifted one edge of the paper reserve card. The plastic sleeve made a dry ticking sound against the glass. "Where are the 2 vehicles on the final approved schedule?" she asked. Julian rested both hands on his portfolio. "We made a business decision to substitute units of equal or greater service capability." "Where are they?" "Sold during a planned fleet adjustment." "On what date?" "Friday." Dana looked at me. Helen did too. "Before or after your readiness tour?" I answered because Julian didn't. "They were collected during it." He turned toward me. The collection timing was controlled by the buyer. I opened the binder to the title release notice and handed it to Helen. The releases were signed at 4:31. Dana arrived at 5. Julian's voice dropped. "That document is outside the operational packet. It concerns 2 contracted vehicles. I'm speaking to my employee." Helen raised one finger without looking at him. He stopped. She read the release, then asked for the approved fleet schedule. I gave her Dana's Thursday email and the VIN photographs. The original reserve cards were behind them. Their bent corners and scuffed laminate looked almost embarrassing beside all that official paper. Dana took one of the cards and held it next to Julian's replacement in Unit 29. "You approved the designation?" Helen asked him. "For dispatch purposes." "You signed the service terms?" "Yes." Dana removed her copy from her tote and opened it to page 14. Julian's signature rose confidently across the line. Helen read the vehicle requirement aloud. Her voice was quiet, which made every word carry across the lot. 6 primary service vehicles and 2 dedicated backup vehicles maintained in road-ready condition, 1 backup equipped and certified for accessible service, all vehicles presented at operational handover. Julian looked toward the maintenance bays. Drivers had begun finding reasons to stand near the open doors. "I understand the language," he said. "Then you understand the airport required them." The sentence landed without drama. A radio crackled in one of the primary vans. Somewhere behind the fence, a delivery truck shifted gears. Helen closed the binder. "You don't have an operational fleet," she said. "You have 6 approved service vehicles, 1 mechanically non-compliant substitute, and 1 administrative substitute that cannot enter our curb zone. We can cure the documentation today. You need to cure the fleet." Julian recovered quickly. That was one of his real talents. He asked what cure period the airport would allow, whether conditional acceptance was possible, and whether they could begin with 6 vehicles while outsourcing contingency coverage. He knew enough contract language to find doors in walls. Helen answered each question. No conditional acceptance, no unapproved subcontractor, no service start without 8 compliant vehicles. Dana showed Helen the earlier readiness records in my binder. My maintenance calendar was there, along with driver assignments, flight bank staffing, radio checks, and the contingency map for terminal closures. Helen spent longer on those pages than I expected. "This operation was ready Thursday," she said. "It was," I said. Julian cut in. "And it will be ready again." Helen issued a cure deadline for Wednesday at 8 in the morning. The airport would extend its existing carrier for 2 days, at our expense under the transition clause. Missing the deadline would trigger default review and possible termination. Possible was the only word Julian heard. He walked Helen and Dana to their SUV as if we had just completed a demanding but productive rehearsal. He thanked them for their flexibility. Dana handed the blue binder back to me before getting in. When the SUV left, Julian remained at the gate with his back to us. Then he turned. "Conference room, now." Our conference room had once been a storage closet. 7 people filled it beyond comfort. Julian, me, Ellis, Tasha, our payroll manager, our hotel route supervisor, and Kevin Salas, who managed drivers. A dry erase map of the county covered one wall. Someone had left a bowl of peppermints on the table, fused into a solid lump by summer heat. Julian closed the door. "We have 48 hours to replace the backup capacity," he said. "I need solutions, not commentary." Ellis folded his arms. "Supplier can get me the lift sensor tomorrow afternoon. Can you expedite?" "I already did." "Can you bypass it temporarily?" "No." "Can you adjust it?" "I can make the warning stop. I can't make the fault stop." Julian moved on before that distinction had time to settle. "Tasha, identify every vehicle we can shift from hotel operations." "We did that Friday," she said. "Do it again." Still the same vans. "Kevin, call off-duty drivers. I want 2 available for vehicle retrieval. We may reverse Friday's transaction." I placed the buyer information from the title release on the table. "They paid $48. They'll know you need them back." "Thank you, Marisol. I understand negotiation." He turned to the others. The airport situation resulted from a gap between contract administration and executive fleet planning. We'll conduct a full review later. Until Wednesday, I expect everyone to work as one company. "A gap?" I asked. Julian's gaze came back to me. "You maintained operational requirements in a separate binder, instead of ensuring they were reflected in the executive summary. They were in the contract you signed. You had a responsibility to elevate material restrictions. I put the vehicle requirement in 3 mobilization emails. I don't recall language identifying asset disposal as prohibited." Kevin shifted in his chair. Payroll studied the peppermint lump. I opened the binder and found the email. "June 12th, I said. "The designated reserves must remain assigned through the full contract term unless replacement VINs are approved in advance by airport operations." You replied, "Understood. Lock 'em down." Tasha coughed into her fist. It sounded suspiciously like a laugh. Julian held out his hand. I gave him the email. He read it, set it face down, and said, This is exactly why we need a document control review. There was almost beauty in the speed of it. By 10, Julian had sent me home on unpaid administrative suspension for failure to follow executive direction. My badge still opened the gate, but my logins remained disabled. He demanded the binder. I gave him copies of the company records and kept the original contract packet pending Helen's written record request, which arrived while he and I were standing in dispatch. He read the email over my shoulder. Helen requested a factual chronology from both of us, along with maintenance status history and communications concerning the sale. Responses were due by noon Tuesday. "Do not send anything without legal review," Julian said. "We don't have a lawyer on retainer." "I'll find one." "You have until tomorrow." "Then I'll find one today." He was already reaching for his phone. I carried the binder to my car. As I opened the door, Ellis came out of Bay 2. "He asked me to amend Friday's inspection," he said. "To what?" "Lift operational with intermittent sensor warning." "What did you say?" I asked him if he wanted his name under mine. Despite everything, I smiled. Ellis pointed a greasy finger at me. "Don't enjoy that too much. He might fire me." "I know." "He offered weekend differential if I sign after the part comes." "That's normal." "He offered it for everybody in the shop if I change the original status now." "That wasn't." "He's making it expensive to stand next to me," I said. "He's making it expensive to stand anywhere." By Monday evening, Julian had sent the staff a memo stating that the airport delay arose from incomplete escalation of technical contract terms. He offered drivers a $500 launch bonus if the company met Wednesday's cure deadline and asked them to confirm they had been informed that reserve assignments were provisional. Kevin forwarded me the confirmation form. The final line read, "I understood vehicle designations could change according to operational need." It said nothing about what anyone had been told before Friday. Tasha refused to sign. Ellis wrote N/A across his. 3 drivers signed because $500 mattered. I couldn't blame them. Julian understood pressure because he lived under it, and he knew exactly how much relief looked like in other people's bank accounts. At 7, Aunt Lucia came back to my duplex without food. She held Julian's staff memo. "Did you fail to escalate the contract terms?" "No." "Did he know the vans were restricted?" "Yes." "Can you prove it?" I pointed to the kitchen table. She read the June email, then the title release, then Ellis's status history. Her shoulders lowered a little more with every page. "He says the broker advised him the vehicles were surplus," she said. "The broker didn't control our fleet schedule." Julian says the broker selected those VINs. The release request will show who selected them. "Do you have it?" "No, Julian does." Lucia sat down. For the first time since she had retired, she looked uncertain inside a room containing company paperwork. "What happens Wednesday?" she asked. "If he presents 2 compliant vans, the airport decides whether the cure is acceptable. And if he can't?" "They begin default review." Her gold earrings trembled slightly when she nodded. "Can you help him?" "I can help the company. You know what I mean." "So do you." She looked at me for a long time. "What will it cost?" Before I could answer, headlights swept across my front window. Julian parked at the curb. He got out carrying Aunt Lucia's chipped ceramic bowl. He had emptied the pistachio shells, but one pale fragment still clung to the bottom. Lucia went to the door and let him in. Julian placed the bowl in the center of my contract papers. "The buyer will sell back Unit 31, he said. "Reserve B, the non-accessible van. They want $34,000. They paid $23,000 for it Friday. They're aware of the cure deadline. And the accessible van, already transferred to a medical transport operator, they won't sell. So you need a lease. The only compliant unit available before Wednesday is in Austin. 6-month minimum, substantial deposit. The casino expansion budget would feel every dollar." Julian looked at the yellow cards above the contract. "I need you back tomorrow," he said. "Under whose direction?" "Mine." "Then you don't need me. You need my name." His eyes lifted to mine. Outside, his car ticked as the engine cooled. "What do you want, Mari?" I slid the bowl away from the papers. "Put that question in writing." Julian took out his phone. "What are you doing?" Lucia asked. "Putting the question in writing." He typed with both thumbs, then my phone vibrated on the table. "Marisol, please state the conditions under which you will return immediately to lead the airport cure." "Julian," I read it once and set my phone beside the bowl. "First, my suspension is rescinded, my system access is restored, and I have sole operational sign-off on vehicle readiness through the cure." Julian's mouth opened. I raised a hand. "You asked?" He leaned against my counter. "Second, you correct the maintenance summary and the staff memo in writing. You tell Helen, Dana, and our employees that I identified the backup requirement, maintained the correct records, and objected to the sale. You want a public confession. I want you to stop using my reputation to protect yours." Lucia looked down at her hands. "Third, fleet changes affecting contracted capacity require 2 approvals, 1 executive, 1 operational. You're asking for veto power. I'm asking for the authority to do the job you blame me for doing. What else? The buyback, lease, transition charges, and airport penalties come out of the casino expansion budget. Driver hours and maintenance stay whole. That could end the casino bid. You spent the airport vans to make the casino numbers prettier. Put the cost where you made the choice." His phone remained in his hand. He had stopped typing. "And finally," I said, "I won't report directly to you after the cure." That brought his head up. "You report to the president." I reported to the person who altered a mechanical fault status, issued an old summary under my name, and suspended me after I corrected him. I was trying to mobilize a contract. You were trying to make Monday look good. The company needs 1 line of authority. It needs 1 line between sales and safety. Lucia spoke carefully. "What are you proposing?" "An outside general manager with passenger transport experience. Julian keeps sales and business development. I keep operations. The general manager has final authority when those functions conflict." Julian laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to demote me inside my own company." "I want the company to survive the next version of Friday. It did survive Friday. Helen has given you until Wednesday." His face flushed. Lucia touched the chipped bowl. "Marta and I should be part of that decision." "Then call her," he said. "Tell her Marisol's price for saving the contract is my job. My price is the end of your ability to sell a contract's equipment and call the person who notices wasteful." He looked at me as if I had struck him. For an instant, I wanted to take the sentence back. Then I saw the imitation yellow cards in Tasha's photograph and let it stand. Julian picked up the bowl. Lucia put her hand over it. "Leave that here." It came from the office. It came from my kitchen. He released it. "I'll retrieve Unit 31 tonight," he said. "I'll get the Austin van tomorrow. I'll save the contract with or without her." "You'll need a permit appointment," I said. "Airport vehicle inspections are booked through Thursday." His expression told me he hadn't learned that yet. "I reserved an emergency slot last week," I continued. "Tuesday at 4. It's attached to my mobilization credentials." "You'd keep that from me?" "I'm telling you now. After making me come here. You came because the buyer named his price." He pushed away from the counter. At the door, Lucia said, "Julian." He stopped. "Send Marta the documents before you give her your version." His shoulders stiffened. Then he left. At 11:08 that night, he emailed me a temporary reinstatement letter restoring my access and operational authority through Wednesday's cure. It contained the dual approval rule for contracted fleet assets. It also stated that all cure costs would be charged against the casino expansion budget. The outside general manager was described as subject to ownership review. I replied with the same 2 words I had used on faulty invoices for years, not sufficient. At 11:31, a revised letter arrived. It committed the company to hiring an outside general manager within 30 days and placed both Julian and me under that role. I signed. My logins worked before midnight. The fleet portal opened like a room after smoke had cleared. Tasha had documented every reassignment. Ellis had restored Unit 24's lift fault to open. Service restriction and attached photographs of the sensor readings. Julian's change remained visible in the history. I corrected the handover packet and removed my name from the old summary. Then I checked the insurance portal. Julian had requested an endorsement for Unit 29, but had entered Tuesday as the effective date. Even if the airport permit could be rushed, the van would miss the cure deadline. I marked it unavailable and started the lease packet for the accessible van in Austin. At 5:42 Tuesday morning, Julian pulled into the depot driving Unit 31. The Reserve B decal outline was still visible on the windshield where the buyer had scraped around it. A new temporary plate sat in the rear window. Julian climbed out wearing yesterday's shirt and carrying a gas station coffee. $34,000, he said. They wouldn't move $1. Did you ask? For 40 minutes. I walked around the van with a flashlight. The buyer had put 83 miles on it and drilled 2 small holes in the dashboard for a phone mount. Julian watched me write them down. Are you charging me for the holes? I'm documenting condition. Of course you are. He sounded tired enough that it almost became affection. I opened the passenger door. The original maintenance packet was still in the glove compartment. The buyer had never removed it. Lucky, Julian said. Prepared. You don't have to correct every noun. I do until Wednesday. Ellis arrived with a Tawabble load tester and ran the van through inspection. Tasha came in behind him, carrying coffees and a paper bag darkening with grease. She handed Julian a breakfast taco. I suspended her, not you, he said. I know. You've been sending her records. I sent pictures of my own whiteboard. Tasha. She met his eyes. You told everybody she misplaced the binder. I watched you ask her to leave it. He looked down at the taco. Anything else? He asked. You're still my boss until the new boss gets here, so probably. He unwrapped the foil and ate without replying. At 8, Julian sent his correction to the staff. It said the backup requirement had been properly documented by operations and that the sale had been authorized by him without operational approval. It withdrew the statements about incomplete escalation and removed the request for drivers to characterize the reserve assignments as provisional. He sent a separate version to Helen and Dana. The broker's release request reached us 20 minutes later. Julian had asked the broker to obtain bids on Units 31 and 33 by VIN. The broker's only recommendation had been to sell if verified surplus to contract needs. Julian stared at the email. I remembered him suggesting those two, he said. You told him you wanted 48 before quarter close. I remembered it differently. That happens when the version you need is louder. He looked ready to fight, then slumped into the dispatch chair. I thought the bank would freeze the line, he said. If that happened, we couldn't make the deposit for the casino fleet. If we missed the deposit, we lost preferred status. So you picked the number that solved Friday. I picked the assets with the lowest utilization because the backups were doing their jobs. He rubbed the red mark across the bridge of his nose. You think I don't understand that now? I think understanding after impact is expensive. He gave a small, bitter smile. $34,000 plus a 6-month lease. And the transition charge. Thank you, Mari. Don't call me that at work. He looked at me. Fine, he said. Marisol. The accessible van arrived from Austin at 12:40 on a flatbed. It was silver instead of white, with a high roof and a lift that sounded like an industrial sewing machine. The lease company had sent its inspection certificate and insurance documents, but the VIN on the certificate ended in 81. The vehicle ended in 18. Julian swore when I showed him. That could be a typo. It is a typo. Everyone knows it's a typo. The airport knows it's the wrong van. He reached for his phone. The lease manager corrected the certificate within an hour. Our insurer issued the endorsement at 2:37. Ellis completed his inspection at 3:05, cycling the lift 6 times under load. He signed the record and slid it across the workbench. "Now I can clear it," he said. We reached the airport permit office at 3:51. Dana met us at the vehicle inspection lane wearing her safety vest. She checked the documents while an airport officer inspected lights, decals, fire extinguishers, step heights, radios, and lift operation. Julian stood nearby with his sleeves rolled up, removing old adhesive from Unit 31's windshield with a plastic scraper. Dana handed me the permit stickers. "I read both chronologies," she said, "and they describe the same Friday in very different weather." "Which one did you believe?" "The one with timestamps. I pressed the first permit against the leased van's windshield." He corrected the record. "I saw. He also worked all night." "I saw that too." Her voice held neither forgiveness nor contempt. It left the decision where it belonged. At 5:18, both vans returned to the depot compliant. I took the original yellow cards from the blue binder. Reserve B went behind the windshield of Unit 31. I placed Reserve A in the silver accessible van, smoothing its bent corner against the glass. Julian stood outside. "I made better copies," he said. "I noticed. The border was off." "I noticed that too." He shoved his hands into his pockets. "You kept these like evidence. They started as instructions. And now, still instructions." Wednesday morning, Helen arrived at 7:45. She began at the first primary van and worked down the line again. She checked Unit 31's VIN against the endorsement and permit, then moved to the least accessible van. "Load test," she said. Ellis rolled the steel weight onto the platform. I secured it. The lift lowered, paused at ground level, then rose in one smooth mechanical hum. Helen made us cycle it a second time. When the platform locked into place, she checked her watch. "Who has authority to remove a contracted vehicle from service or dispose of it?" she asked. "I have service removal authority," I said. "Asset disposal requires my approval and Julian's until the general manager is hired." Helen looked at him. "Is that accurate?" "Yes." "And the fleet readiness sign-off?" "Marisol's." He said my name cleanly. Helen signed the cure form. The airport accepted the vehicles and authorized service to begin Thursday, subject to 90 days of enhanced reporting. Vega Passenger Services owed 2 days of transition coverage plus inspection charges. Any repeat failure involving backup capacity would move directly to default review. Julian signed beneath her. His casino bonus went into the cure costs. The fleet deposit was canceled, and the bid was postponed until the company could meet its lenders' ratios without selling assigned equipment. He kept bringing in accounts because he was still good at it, but purchase orders and contract summaries stopped being private versions of reality. Lucia and Marta hired Renee Brooks, who had spent 16 years running paratransit and convention fleets. Renee carried a small notebook, hated leather portfolios, and asked Julian for supporting documents often enough that he began arriving with them. My unpaid suspension was reversed on paper. The money took 3 payroll cycles to reach me. Sunday dinners took longer. Marta spoke to me with careful courtesy for months. Lucia kept bringing food, though she stopped telling me when to fight. During the holiday flight bank, Unit 14 developed a coolant leak near Terminal B. 20 minutes later, a security closure trapped Unit 18 on the wrong side of the arrivals loop. Tasha called both reserves before I had to ask. The silver accessible van took the delayed pickup. Unit 31 covered the next hotel connection. Dana watched them enter the curb zone 6 minutes apart, permits bright in their windshields. By dawn, the flight board had thinned and the radio was quiet. I parked the reserves in their marked spaces at the depot. Road salt filmed both windshields. I wiped 2 clear rectangles with my sleeve and slipped the yellow cards beneath the wipers. Reserve A, Reserve B. The corners fluttered once in the cold morning air, then settled flat.